Oh, the lights.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. Today's March 27th. It's the Executive Nominations Committee. We have one more after tonight. And just an announcement, next week, executive nominations will start at 4 instead of 5, in case I forget to mention that later. So thank you all for being here. If you're here tonight and you're a nominee, when you come to the podium, if you'd like to introduce any guests that are with you, family or friends, please feel free to do that. I'm going to ask once again that our senators keep your introductions brief. We really want to hear from your nominees. So thank you all for attending. We're going to start tonight with the Airport Zoning Appeals Board. Senator Jennings isn't here, but I have a letter from Senator Jennings, which I'm going to read in just a minute here. Because there we go. So Mr. Victor Butanus, did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Thank you very much for being here. So I have a letter from your senator. He apologizes that he can't be here tonight. And this is a reappointment for you to the Board of Zoning.
That is
Appeals.
correct.
Thank you. And you're the current chair.
That is correct.
Well, that's really good. So as
The
a
last
former,
3 years.
thank you for that service. As a former associate judge for the District Court for Harford County, Mr. Butanus has demonstrated time and again that he's hardworking, dedicated individual who continues to serve the citizens of Maryland to the utmost degree. This is often displayed by his membership and experiences on multiple committees, including the Adult Drug Court Program, the Civil Law and Procedure Committee, and the Drug Treatment Court Commission, and the Addictions Advisory Council, to name a few. So thank you very much for all your service, and thank you for the Airport Zoning Appeals.
You're very welcome. I would appreciate the opportunity to continue in that service. Since I retired from the bench in 2018, I have felt a compunction to give back to the public, and this is one of the ways I feel I can do it. I also serve, it's not before you tonight, also on the Governor's Commission for Maryland Military Monuments. So I'm kind of donating my time when I can.
Sounds like a full-time job.
Well, yes and no.
Well, thank you for all your service. Do I have any questions tonight for Mr. Butanus? Thank you very much for being here.
May I be excused?
Yes, you may.
Thank you all very much.
Spoken like a judge, isn't
I'm
it?
starting to get a complex. This is probably my 6th appearance before the Executive Nominations Commission. I think the last 3, my sponsor has not shown.
Uh-oh. Avila, talk with him about that. Thank you. I don't know if Senator Lamb is here yet.
He's still in voting.
Yeah, we're in a voting session, executive nom, so we're gonna, a finance, I'm sorry. So I think we'll hold until Senator Lamb gets here. Senator West, would you like to introduce Marco Avila for the Automobile Insurance Fund Board?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would be pleased to introduce Mr. Avila. He is a past president of the American Society of Highway Engineers Chesapeake Section. He's a past president of the Engineering Society of Baltimore. He is currently the chair of the board and the president of the Maryland Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. He's been working as a vice president, civil engineer and program manager with his company for many years, in which connection he has worked on the I-495/I-270, that huge project down in Washington, D.C., and the American Legion Bridge. And now he's here before you as a nominee to be on the board of MAIF. I'm pleased to introduce him.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, my name is Marco Avila, a civil engineer. Been working in engineering for the past 36 years. Also volunteer a lot in the community. I've been with the Maryland Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for 3.5 years and bringing the chamber to new levels and helping the small businesses in Maryland and helping the economy and trying to link Maryland with the world. So among other things, I get involved in humanitarian missions and help the community, the students, a lot of mentoring for high school kids to get them to get into engineering and the professional world. So the quick summary of what I do. I don't know if you have any questions.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Avila? Any questions? Thank you very much. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to introduce Mr. Eric Fisher because Senator Guile has her district night tonight and she apologizes that she can't be here, but She's hosting the night. So Mr. Fisher, are you here? Thank you. So Senator Gile writes a little letter for you. She says, with apologies, I'm unable to present my constituent Eric Fisher. I write to express my endorsement of Mr. Fisher's nomination and would request the committee's support for his appointment to the Critical Area Commission for the Chesapeake and Atlantic Coastal Bays. Mr. Fisher is well qualified for the role due to his extensive experience as the Maryland Assistant Director of the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, as well as his educational background focusing on social planning and community dynamics. The Critical Area Commission is crucial to our state's goal of protecting and restoring our most beloved resource, the Chesapeake Bay. So, Mr. Fisher, thank you for volunteering to do this.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I am humbled and honored by the governor's nomination. I'm excited. I'm ready to serve. Critical Area Commission is a unique body that's founded in a state and local partnership to manage our shorelines and accommodate development priorities. I do have a little bit of practice at this. I began my career as the city planner for the city of Westminster, and I'm proud of my record of advancing priorities for development while protecting the natural places in Westminster that made it such a desirable place to be. I ran the Planning Commission, I ran the Historic District Commission, covered everything from citywide plans to sign permits. Whether big or small, it was all important to the applicants, it was all important to the community, and I will carry that forward at the Critical Area Commission. My environmental work has focused extensively on local partnership and capacity building, whether that's learning from each other, connecting bright ideas locally sourced with the knowledge to carry them out and the resources to implement them, and to take shared action where we can to build capacity together. I would simply say in closing, I'm a lifelong Marylander. I love this state. I know that part of what makes this state unique is our coastal bays, our Chesapeake Bay, but also the diversity of thought and knowledge and experience of the communities that call it home. I'm committed to supporting that, and it would be an honor to serve you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any questions for Mr. Fisher? I actually have a question. So
Yes,
I
ma'am.
represent Anne Arundel County, 466 miles of shoreline. I hear from my Board of Appeals that they often don't hear from the Critical Area Commission when they have someone appealing to build in the Critical Area Commission. So I'd like to particularly pay attention when we have a request for a variance or modification in the Critical Area Commission in Anne Arundel County.
I'll absolutely carry that forward,
All
Madam
right.
Chair.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just very quickly, Ms. Fisher's been a kind of a fixture in the Education, Energy, Environment Committee this session. You've been really a valuable resource. I just want to throw that into the mix as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chairman.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you all.
Is Senator Jackson here? Senator Jackson, would you like to introduce Earl Hance again for the Chesapeake and Atlantic Coastal Bays Critical Area?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Senator Michael Jackson, District 27, on behalf of Earl Hance this evening. Earl Hance is uniquely qualified for this position for a number of reasons. One, he serves as for 6 years as the Secretary of Agriculture for the state of Maryland. He's currently the council president, county commissioner president for Coward County, one of my 3 counties that I represent. We have a terrific relationship, by the way. Governor's Commission on Agricultural Viability of Southern Maryland, Southern U.S. Trade Association, Southern Maryland Growth Strategic Task Force, Board of Regents for the University of Maryland, Rural Maryland Council, Prince Frederick Volunteer Fire Department, Patuxent River Commission, and a host of others. As you can see in your packet before you, his resume jumps out at you on 1, that he's a person of service. 2, being a farmer himself, he understands how vital our natural resources are, and to represent Coward County, where you have Patuxent River on one side and Chesapeake Bay on the other. He is uniquely qualified. So, Madam Chair and members of the committee, I would love to introduce Earl Hance.
So good evening, Madam Chair, fellow committee members. Senator Jackson did an outstanding job. I'm sure my mother is very proud. But as he stated, first and foremost, I'm a farmer, 4th generation, and I live in critical areas. Our farm is on right off of Battle Creek, off of the Patuxent River, where my family's been for 125 years. And as a child growing up, I've seen tremendous change in the Patuxent River and Battle Creek. And it's a lot of changes have occurred. As when I was secretary under Governor O'Malley, I worked on a lot of the TMDLs for agriculture, and very proud of the progress that we've made. But we have to be very protective of our critical areas that are invaluable to protecting the water resources that we have. So as you've heard, I'm always willing to serve. And when I was called and asked, it's a privilege and an honor to serve on the Critical Areas Commission. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them.
Do we have any questions? It's nice to see you again, and thanks for your service on the Critical Area Commission.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Bailey, are you here? There we are. Senator Bailey is going to introduce Rosa Hance.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and distinguished members of the committee. Senator Bailey for the record. Tonight, I have the honor and the privilege of introducing a friend of mine, a very qualified individual. You can see that by her resume, Rosa Hance, and I recommend her as a member of the Critical Area Commission.
Thank you so much, Senator Bailey, and thank you, Chair and committee members. This is truly an honor. For the record, my name is Rosa Hance, and I would be honored to serve. I'm grateful to Governor Moore for the opportunity. The critical area is indeed the buffer between what happens on the land and what happens on the water. And from my experience as a Sierra Club volunteer leader at the local level, I see it personally and with my children. And I believe that the local perspective on these statewide issues is important, and I try to bring that to my role as the state chapter chair now for the Sierra Club, and I hope to do that. I would be honored to serve and answer any questions that you may have about my resume or background.
Thank you, Ms. Hance. It's funny that we had two Hances in a row, but you were in different districts, so I didn't think you were married.
My husband is, I believe, Buddy's third cousin once removed,
Okay.
roughly. I don't have my family tree, though. I apologize. I was thinking that I might get a question about that.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for Ms. Hance? Nothing. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
So next I have Senator Gallion to introduce Travis Marion. Here he comes.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Mr. President, and members of the Executive Nominations Committee. For the record, Senator Jason Gallion, proudly representing District 35, Cecil, and Hartford counties. I'm pleased to introduce tonight the Mayor Rising Sun, Travis Marion, nominee for the Critical Area Commission for the Chesapeake and Atlantic Coastal Bays. Travis Marion is a graduate of Wilmington University and currently working towards his master's at Liberty University. He has served on numerous boards and commissions, including the Maryland Open Data Council, the MML Board of Directors, and is Secretary of the Maryland Mayors Association. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Travis Marion.
Thank you, Senator Gallion. Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair Hayes, Mr. President Ferguson, and all the members of the Senate Nomination Committee. Thank you for this opportunity to appear before you regarding my nomination for the Critical Areas Commission for the Chesapeake and Atlantic Coastal Bays. Thank you to Governor Wes Moore and Secretary Edwards for your confidence in my nomination. Cecil County and Hartford County are both home to several important tributaries to our nation's largest estuary, the Chesapeake Bay. As someone who has a family home in Ocean City, I know the great importance of our Atlantic coastal areas as well. I have many friends who are watermen who depend on the health, viability, and water quality of both the Chesapeake and Atlantic coastal bays. I pledge to you that I will do all I can to help protect both of these vital natural resources. Thank you again for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Do I have any questions for Mayor Marion? No questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Senator Carozza, would you like to introduce Todd Knock?
Good evening. For the record, Senator Mary Beth Carozza representing Worcester, Wycomico, and Somerset counties. And I'm pleased to introduce Todd Knock, who has been nominated to serve on the Critical Area Commission for the Chesapeake and Atlantic Coastal Bays. And Mr. Knock brings a variety of experiences to this appointment. First of all, he's a teacher, a longtime teacher in Dorchester County. Second of all, his public service, he has served on the Pocomoke City Council since 2018, since 2019 as the vice president of the council. And on April 11th, he will become the mayor of Pocomoke. And then perhaps most relevant to this appointment, when I talked to Todd about his outdoor work experiences, he has had positions with the Aztec Island National Park as a ranger, a park ranger, and also with the Maryland Coastal Bays doing oyster replenishment work. So it brings a really unique perspective. I also wanted to mention that he is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha and that he will be with the governor later today. And what I really wanted to underscore with my colleagues and what I know about Todd personally, he comes from a family of strong women, women of faith. And I've actually been able to celebrate with his grandmother, and I understand we'll be celebrating her 99th birthday coming up. So it's a pleasure to introduce and to support Todd's nomination for this very important commission.
Good evening, everyone. As Senator Carosa said, I am Todd Knock from Pocomoke City. First, I want to thank Governor Moore for considering me, considering a little country boy from Pocomoke City, Maryland, who has been tasked to do some great things. I am excited about this. With my work with the Maryland Coastal Bays, you know, that was really my first taste of almost politics, so to speak. I remember going down to Aztec Island and doing the oyster replenishment, and that was actually where I met the First Lady of the state at the time, Katie O'Malley. I got an awesome picture with her to document that day, and we were able to take another picture a couple months ago when she came down to visit Aztec again. I am committed to this work. Pocomoke City actually falls within the critical area. In 1997, we did some annexation. They did some annexation, and Pocomoke City became a part of this critical area. This is much needed. We really need to focus on permitting and different things like that. It will be an honor to serve on this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Commissioner Knock, Mayor Knock?
We're kind of going by mayor-elect now.
Mayor-elect. Okay, thank you very much. I got a little lost in that great resume. Do you have any questions at all for Mayor-elect Knock? Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to have Senator Sarah Elfreth introduce Councilwoman Lisa Rodvien.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. Senator Sarah Elfreth here to present not just a friend, but my colleague on the county council, Councilwoman Lisa Rodvien. You can see in her resume that she is trained both as a lawyer and a teacher, and for the last 4.5 years has served on the Anne Arundel County Council representing District 6. Now, I usually make a joke about my own district because our districts overlap. I can say the same thing here. District 6 is one big critical area. So she has great knowledge and experience. She has been on the vanguard of every environmental piece of legislation in front of the county council. I know she will add a unique perspective to the commission, and I wholeheartedly endorse her for this position. Thank you.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Senator Elfreth. Thank you, Madam Chair and Vice Chair Hayes and honorable members of the commission. I am currently serving on the Anne Arundel County for District 6. And if you're curious where that is, you are in Anne Arundel County District 6. I hope you are having a lovely day here in District 6. As you might imagine by the geography of this district, which is got the Severn River on one side, the South River on the other side, and the Chesapeake Bay at the end of it, critical area is extremely important to the constituents that live in District 6 as District 30, as we overlap greatly. So this is an issue that, or this is a topic that has come up a lot in my legislative work on the county council, and I'm really pleased to be able to extend it on the Critical Area Commission as well. I'm grateful to the governor for this nomination, and I'm grateful for you taking the time to listen to me today.
Do I have any questions for Councilwoman Rodvien? I'm very pleased to see you appointed. I know that you'll do a great job. So it's nice to see you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bidle.
Senator Brooks. Senator Brooks, would you introduce our friend, Councilman Pat Young? I had to think which title.
I certainly will. Thanks, Chair Bottle and other members of the Executive Nominations Committee. For the record, I'm Senator Brooks. I represent the 10th Legislative District in Baltimore County. I'd like to start off by saying that this guy probably doesn't need any introduction, but with protocol, I'll do that. You know, we're fortunate enough to come into the legislature together. You know, and he has done an amazing job here while he was in the House. He's a deputy majority whip, and then the county delegation for Baltimore County. And he's a military guy. You know, he served his country with honor. His resume is extensive. His commitment is impressive, and his character unshakable. And like another former delegate who came in with me, he will bite when needed. And I'm sorry, he will bark when needed and bite when necessary, if I can say it right. So may I introduce County Councilman, County Council District 1, Pat Young. Thanks.
Thank you. Sure. Good afternoon, members of the committee. Thank you, Madam Chair and Mr. Vice Chair. And also thank you to the governor and to Appointment Secretary Edwards for the consideration for the appointment to the Critical Areas Commission representing Baltimore County. I'll be clear, I stand before you as a failure. My entire life, all I've wanted to do was be a park ranger. And now I am simply a humble elected official representing Southwest Baltimore County, where I have the opportunity to not only live in that area, but also history of playing, working, as well as being educated around the Patapsco River and understanding the importance that the Chesapeake Bay has on not only our state, but also its tributaries has on the Chesapeake Bay itself. I look forward to the opportunity of continuing to engage with all of you and my colleagues in the House and my new colleagues in the County Council, one, to bring attention to the issues that Baltimore County faces, that the state faces, and that honestly our nation faces related to the Chesapeake Bay watershed and how we can consistently work together to make sure that it is a treasure and jewel that everyone can benefit from long into the future. And lastly, I'll just say that I had the opportunity to attend the UN Climate Change Conference in Scotland back in October. And while they're realizing that there are so many folks dedicated and so many people looking at a green economy and looking for ways to work together to solve our issues and make sure that our planet continues to stay safe and we mitigate the issues of climate change. But realizing that we've done this work before when we've worked together internationally to help eliminate certain chemicals going into the sky that have reduced the ozone over the entire nation or the entire world. And I would just like to say that I know that on this commission, we'll be able to work together to continue to mitigate as well as move forward our goals as a state, as well as make sure the Chesapeake Bay is someplace that my kids and your kids can continue to enjoy. Thank you.
Councilman Young, it's great to see you.
You too.
Do I have any questions? Oh, President Ferguson, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move unfavorable for the nominee. In all seriousness, no, could not second a better nominee for this role. I was going to say something about missing the fireside chats and okay, well, so it's stole it from this from the chair, JPR. It's great to see you again. Glad you were doing well. We miss you here at the state and wish you well in the commission.
You as well, Mr. President. I'd just say that if you wanted me to come down, all you had to do was ask. You didn't have to appoint me to a commission, but I appreciate it.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Councilman.
Thank you.
Oh, Senator Sidor, I missed that one. Sorry.
No, I'm not gonna mess with them.
Okay.
No, this is my councilman and I certainly support his nomination as well.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Senator.
College of Southern Maryland Board of Trustees, Senator Jackson. Will you introduce Pamela Cousins, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Executive Nominations Committee, Senator Michael Jackson, District 27. On behalf of Pamela Cousins to the College of Southern Maryland Board of Trustees, for the members on the committee, you may or may not know the College of Southern Maryland spans 3 counties, the southern counties of Calvert County, Charles County, and St. Mary's County. This is for a Board of Trustees position for Calvert County. Ms. Cousins has a very extensive and impeccable resume, a well-decorated and recognized military career in the United States Air Force. Her mission there was to help mitigate national security, cyber challenges in support of the national intelligence community while recognizing what was recognized while she was there with combined military and private industry responsibility. She has 35 years of cybersecurity project management, leadership experience, building teams and managing secure IT systems. Ms. Cousins and I met back in 2013 as I was running for delegate for District 27B, and Ms. Cousins happened to be running it as a Calvert resident. She was running for the school board for Calvert County. She was successful then, and it's successful to be reelected in 2018. She ascended to the role of presidency of the president as well as vice president, and implemented some policies in Calvert County that will stand the test of time. She's also been recognized on some state boards as well. Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm honored to nominate Ms. Pamela Cousins to serve on the College of Southern Maryland Board representing Calvert County. So I'll present to you Ms. Pamela Cousins.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Vice Chair, and to the members of the committee. Today, I'm joined by my good friend and colleague in service, the President of the Calvert County Board of Education, Inez Claggett. Thank you for being here. I want to say thank you to Senator Michael Jackson for the nomination and also to Governor Westmore's administration for the appointment. And I also appreciate your consideration this evening. Throughout my adult life, I've been afforded the opportunity to sit in positions where I can help shape the outcomes and opportunities for young people and adults. And given the opportunity this evening, I will certainly do the same for the Trustees Board of College of Southern Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cousins. Do I have any questions or comments from Ms. Cousins? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Senator Rosa, would you like to introduce in the State Board of Elections, Carlos Ayala? Close.
Hello again, colleagues. Senator Mary Beth Carosa for the record, this time Wycomico, Worcester, and Somerset counties. And I'm very pleased to be here tonight to introduce Carlos Ayala for the State Board of Elections. And wanted to just bring to your attention, he is a very well-respected business and community leader. He has had key roles with Purdue Farms since 1989, and they include Director of International Operations, General Manager of Purdue China, and also Vice President International for all of Purdue Farms. I also want to share with you his community involvement. In the Shore area, Salisbury area, we have a growing Haitian community, and Carlos has served as a board of director of Rebirth, which focuses on aiding migrant communities. Also, he's been involved with the American Cancer Society, and as a cancer survivor myself, I certainly appreciate that, and also has been a big brother in Big Brothers and Big Sisters. He's a very humble person, so it took a lot to just try to pull information from him. And when I asked him about his family, and he lit up and talked about his wife, Gia, and their 4 children ranging from 8 to 14 years old. And I asked them, what was a special, what was, very special about his family. And he talked about the travel adventures, given, I think, what Carlos has done in the past and what he's now doing with his family. So I'm pleased not only to introduce him to you, but to strongly support his nomination for the State Board of Elections.
Thank you, Senator Rosa. Honorable Senators, Chair, thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity. I'm deeply appreciative of having been nominated by Governor Moore, and I'm humbled by being able to stand here in front of you and be considered for what I consider to be an extremely important position. After having lived in multiple different countries, after having worked with a bunch of different cultures, both abroad and here in the United States, I recognize the importance of this board. And it would be my honor to be able to serve on there and to represent the communities that we have, ensuring that people have fair and equal access to the polls. Super important. So I humbly thank you for your consideration and look forward to serving the state of Maryland as a member of the State Board of Elections.
Thank you very much. Thank you for recognizing what an important position this is. It's important work that you'll be doing. So thank you. Do I have any questions at all? Any comments? No? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Senator Hester, would you like to introduce Ms. Christine McLeod for the State Board of Elections?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Senator Katie Fry Hester, and I'm proud to represent District 9. Tonight, I'm honored to introduce Christine McLeod. I actually just met her a few minutes ago, and we had a really nice conversation. She's been nominated to the State Board of Elections. She is an Ellicott City business owner whose practices focuses on trauma recovery for our most vulnerable Marylanders. She's a long-term Howard County resident, graduating from Oakland Mills High School and Howard County Community College, where she received a degree in business management. And so without further ado, I know you have a busy evening, and I'll pass the microphone off to Ms. McLeod.
Thank you, Senator Hester. And thank you, everybody, for having me here. I want to thank Republican GOP Chair Nicole Harris for selecting me for this position of State Board of Elections, as well as Governor Moore's recommendation for this position as well, too. I'm greatly honored. Last year, I was able to connect with fellow Republicans, and I was able to get out there and do some volunteer work in that arena. And it was very, very exciting to kind of see the inner workings of everything, and just to see really how crucial and how sacred the whole voting process is. And I knew that I just had to be something, part of just something bigger for this state. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. McLeod. Do I have any other questions or comments for Ms. McLeod? Senator Feldman?
Yeah, well, just, just a couple questions. I mean, I don't see a lot here in terms of background. I guess I should just ask you, have you ever served as an election judge or anything in kind of I know you just mentioned doing some observations last year, but what in your background for this body would assure us that you have some working knowledge?
I did some campaign work, volunteer work for someone who was running for delegate. I did some door knocking, some holding the signs at the polls and stuff like that, just volunteer work.
Well, can I just one or two follow-ups, Madam Chair, just, so just to drill a little deeper?
Yes, Senator.
Do you think that fraud is a major problem in Maryland or elsewhere? Is voter fraud something that you think is a significant problem or not so much?
Honestly, I don't really follow that. I do know that in talking with other people, it is a concern for people. That I will tell you, but state to state, everything is different. So I personally have not seen any evidence that would prove whether or not there was or was not fraud in the state of Maryland or even in the county.
Madam Chair, one other question. Do you have any view on whether it's appropriate for voters to bring guns to the polls or near polls. Is that something that you have a position or view on?
Well, I don't think it's needed, but we do have in the Constitution that we have the right to bear arms, but I don't think it's needed.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator King.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you grade Maryland's elections? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you grade Maryland's elections?
I can only tell you what I've seen just in my county. And we actually there was a meeting last summer with one of the county BOE members. And she was talking about the 2020 elections, and she did raise some questions for me because it seemed like she was leading to believe that certain things were not done correctly by law, which was a little bit of a concern.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. And Senator Zucker?
So what is your, I mean, we hear a lot of things hearsay. So what is your opinion though?
I mean, unless I see concrete evidence, I'm not going to sit here and say there is or isn't fraud. I mean, I know that is a very big concern for people, but like I said, I mean, I personally haven't seen anything. I do know people out there just amongst just hearing what other people are saying, that it is a concern.
And then obviously with the elections being the way they are, we're trying to create more accessibility, giving people more of the opportunity to vote. Do you have any thoughts on mail-in ballots?
Sure, I do.
And they are?
I don't think they should be allowed. But that's just my personal opinion.
But your personal opinion will now be reflected with the State Board of Elections. Okay.
Questions? No other questions? No.
Yes.
Oh,
I was intrigued by the last line of questioning. So I just, the sanctity of our elections and the security and the kind of the successful operation leads obviously to the election of our executive. So I guess the simple question up front would be, do you believe that the governor is the duly elected governor of the state of Maryland? Are the results proper and final in your opinion?
I've never seen the results.
So the results that have been published on the State Board of Elections, and we had an inauguration. Just a simple question. Do you believe that Governor Westmore is the duly elected governor of the state of Maryland?
Sure.
Do you think there was fraud, overwhelming fraud that would change the outcome of that election?
I can't answer that question. I have no idea. Like I said before, I have not seen concrete evidence of fraud.
So you couldn't definitively say that this election was faithfully, fully carried out and that the proper result was rendered to the people of Maryland?
I can go just based on assumption.
Okay.
I would assume. I mean, it should be.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks. Senator Ferguson, President Ferguson.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for putting your name in to serve. I'm just, by Senator Zucker's question, I was sort of taken back quickly and about the mail-in ballots. This is certainly something for the state of Maryland we've been moving forward on and making sure that we have as secure an election as humanly possible. I think a lot of us have confidence in that. Your personal opinion is that you do not believe that there should be mail-in ballots. Is that's accurate?
Based on, I don't think it is secure in a way that I know people that have gotten mail-in ballots sent to their house, and they've gotten several mail-in ballots. It just seems like it's not 100% like, what's the word? I just feel like there needs to be work done on it. You know, multiple ballots shouldn't be sent to a house where there's only one registered voter. They shouldn't be receiving multiple ballots. And again, this is just what I'm just hear from other people. So just based on that, I just feel like it's not 100%, and it needs to be. And that's why I say I don't, think that we should have mail-in ballot, because there's a problem out there. This is, I'm hearing from other people. So this is why I'm here today, to help and make sure that this doesn't happen.
And would you say that you would, given your personal opinion, which I understand, that you would, as a member of the board, not feel comfortable moving forward with mail-in ballots until you felt certain that your questions were answered?
No, I would feel comfortable moving forward with mail-in ballots.
Even though you don't necessarily believe that they're accurate?
Correct, but I would think, and again, assume that that you guys would be working on laws in place to rectify the issues that's happening right now with the mail-in ballots.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. President, if I have no other questions, thank you, Ms. McLeod.
Thank you.
Senator Feldman, would you introduce Janet Millenson, please?
Colleagues, it's an honor to represent or to present Janet Millenson for a spot on the State Board of Elections. She comes with a strong background in our election system. Specifically, since 2004, she's worked elections in Montgomery County as a chief judge of one of our early voting centers. As a roamer, she's trained all levels of election workers. She's a member of the Nonpartisan Election Verification Network, and she led the Protecting the Vote advocacy team for the League of Women Voters of Maryland. By way of just educational background, she has an undergraduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania in logistical systems, mathematics, logic, and computer science, and a Master of Science from MIT in their School Sloan of Management. With that, colleagues, I'll present to you Janet. I apologize to Janet Millenson, right to my left.
And Senator Feldman, good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, President Ferguson, and members of the committee. My name is Janet Millenson, and I'd like to thank Governor Moore's administration for the honor of this nomination. I'm here today with my husband, Herb Edelstein, a Baltimore native and a Poly grad. Herb understands that I'd rather watch a government hearing than a television show. It's true. It's true. I grew up in Montgomery County, and as you heard, I've been working elections since 2004, when my father, a chief judge in his precinct for more than 40 years, decided he could no longer handle a 16-hour day. Having been brought up with a deep sense of civic responsibility, I thought it sounded like a fun and worthwhile activity to try myself. I signed up and, well, I got hooked. Other than during the pandemic year of 2020, I've worked every election since then and have trained election judges as well. The State Board of Elections needs members who are both deeply knowledgeable about election operations and technology and are passionate about protecting the right to vote. I've spent the past several years leading election-related advocacy for the League of Women Voters of Maryland. Some of you have seen me testify to your committee. And I meet regularly with other advocates across the state from jurisdictions large and small. This has given me valuable insight into the concerns of underserved minority communities, disability rights activists, returning citizens, new voters, and others. I look forward to helping ensure that all eligible Marylanders can participate securely, conveniently, and confidently in our election system. We're very lucky to live in this great state, and I welcome the opportunity to serve. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your testimony and your comments. Do I have any questions or comments for this nominee? I think you answered them all. Thank you. I'm going to back up for just a minute because I know some people have come from a long way, and Senator Hershey is still upstairs. We're having a long voting session in finance. So he asked that I introduce Christy Stevens. Christy, are you here? He's actually sent me a text, so please excuse me for reading on my phone. You're from District 36. Christy Stevens has lived in Cecil County, Maryland for over 20 years. She served as a board member and vice president of the Cecil County Public Schools for 4 years. She volunteers as a court-appointed special advocate. She's a small business owner in addition to her full-time role as a staff member for the Dr. Bethany Hall Long, the Lieutenant Governor of Delaware. She has 4 children. Her oldest headed off to the University of Delaware in the fall. She has a bachelor's degree from Liberty University with a certificate in community engagement. So I think for the Critical Area Commission, Christy.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here tonight. Again, my name is Christy Stevens, and I have been a resident of Cecil County, Maryland for over 20 years. I'm interested in opportunities to make a significant contribution to the protection of the citizens of Maryland. As stated, I served as a member and board, as a board member and vice president of the Cecil County Board of Education. I've also chaired the School Board Citizens Advisory Committee for 4 years. Natural and working lands play an essential role in the economic, environmental, and social well-being of communities, and I'm passionate about our communities. As a Cecil County resident, we pride ourselves on our beautiful farmlands, and I'm looking forward to serving in this committee, on this committee in the capacity of the unique perspective as a Cecil County resident. Each county and municipality is unique. I look forward to representing Cecil County's interests. I will be very present, important for local jurisdictions to hear back from the committee. So I look forward to serving in that capacity.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry your senator didn't get to see you tonight, but we're making him work extra hard.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Croza, are you ready to present? Because this is another person that's come from far away. It's Senator Motz's nominee, Larry Porter, for the Critical Area Commission.
Senator Mary Beth Carosa, and proud to introduce a county commissioner from Caroline County, a longtime public servant. I was taking a look at this, and I actually know of you from some of my own county commissioners in Worcester, Wycomico, and Somerset counties. But I did want to highlight that the Mr. Porter is the vice president now of the board, and he's also been involved with the fire department, which I don't think we do enough to thank you all. Also wanted to mention your coaching background. I think what's most important is the fact that if you've been involved in public service at the county level this long, you certainly understand the challenges that we face with the Critical Area Commission to the Chesapeake and Atlantic Coastal Bays. So I'm proud not only to introduce you this evening, but to support your nomination.
Thank you, committee, for allowing me to come across the bridge tonight. I am in my 13th year as a county commissioner in Caroline County. I have, my life has been dedicated to public service. I've been a volunteer fireman since 1981 and served as past president. We have I live on the Choptank River, and I live 30 miles from the Chesapeake Bay and about 60 minutes from Ocean City. My family, I wrote a book last year and was published about growing up in a rural county. And we traced my wife's family and my family back generations. And we are proud owners of a century farm that was traced back to her family to 1797. So I am very pleased and very proud and very happy for Governor Moore's appointment. I'm old, and everybody keeps saying, boy, you better slow down. But I think that this opportunity for me is especially important because of former Governor Harry Hughes's involvement in this commission. Governor Hughes was a son of Caroline County. He was related to me, and he was a mentor of mine in his final years when he moved back home. And I counted on him very much for his input and his information as I was fighting for better healthcare access for Caroline County. So it's particularly gratifying for me to be considered for this position on this commission. So I appreciate it very much. Thank you all, and open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your service. Do I have any questions? Thank you very much for coming across the bridge.
Thank you. I'm on my way back. I wanted to introduce our executive assistant, Kaylee Leager. She said I had to introduce her because she drove me over here. So
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. You want to go back up for the environmental service, Maryland Environmental Service for Brendan Bates.
Madam Chair, it's Botts. So just so we're all correct, it's Brendan Botts for a position on the Maryland Environmental Service. Just by way of background, he's got a very strong resume for this particular position. Since 2018, he served as Vice President of Gable Associates, an energy and environmental consulting firm, advising clients on a range of energy and regulatory issues. For 4 years before that, he served as Senior Manager for the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy. Prior to that, 2013-14, an energy industry analyst at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and also served as an energy analyst at our Maryland Public Service Commission. He has published many peer-reviewed papers and served as an expert witness to provide testimony in several cases before regulatory commissions. And by way of education, he holds a Master's of Public Affairs in Environmental Policy in Analysis from Indiana University in Bloomington. With that, colleagues, Brendan Botts.
Thank you for the introduction, Senator Feldman. I'll be brief. Good evening, Madam Chair Beidel, Vice Chair Hayes, members of the committee. My name is Brendan Botts, and I'm honored and humbled to be here before you tonight as you consider my nomination. I thank you for your time in considering my nomination, and I also thank Governor Moore, Lieutenant Governor Miller, and Secretary Edwards for putting their faith and trust in me to execute the duties of this position. The problems facing Maryland's environment today are significant and complicated. They'll require innovative solutions from both private industry and government, and the work of Maryland Environmental Service will be critical to addressing these problems. The agency's history shows the agency has met these problems with the utmost professionalism and integrity, and I look forward to contributing to this effort. I also look forward to meeting new and existing board members and working with the Executive Director, Charles Glass, to advance the mission of the Maryland Environmental Service to protect and enhance the environment of Maryland for all citizens in the state. Thank you again for your time in considering my nomination and answer any questions that you may have.
Do I have any questions for Mr. Botts? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next, I'm going to introduce, if I have this right, Molly Joes. Thank you. So I have a letter here from Senator Jennings, and he apologizes that he could not be here tonight. But he says, you're a licensed professional environmental engineer with over 20 years of experience in water and wastewater industry, master's degree in environmental engineering, a bachelor's in civil engineering, and certified organizational change management practitioner. Ms. Joes has large-scale water and sewer design projects, technology initiatives, and water infrastructure master planning in Maryland for over 20 years. Active member of the American Water Works Association, the Chesapeake Water Environment Association, and is committee chair for the water mentoring program for the City of Baltimore's YH20 program. Sounds like you bring a great deal of experience to MES, and welcome tonight.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and Senate Executive Committee members. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Molly Joes, and I'm a licensed environmental engineer. I would like to thank Governor Westmore, Lieutenant Governor Miller, and Appointment Secretary Ms. Edwards for their confidence in nominating me to this important position on the MES Board of Directors. I look forward to working with other board members and Executive Director Dr. Glass in advancing the environmental mission at MES, as well as upholding public trust in the organization. I also want to thank my friend Ms. Cece Nguyen, who's come all the way from Virginia to support me, and Jeff Tossie with the MES Government Affairs Director. Thank you all for your time.
Do I have any questions at all for Ms. Joes? Thank you very much. President Ferguson, I understand you're going to introduce Ms. Catherine Motz for the Higher Education Commission of Maryland.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the Executive Nominations Committee. It is a pleasure to be here with you today. Unfortunately, Senator Carter was unable to be here this evening, and so I gladly offered up to serve to introduce a phenomenal public servant, someone who has been doing just amazing work for the state of Maryland for a long time, formerly as the Deputy Legal Counsel for the prior governor, also as the Deputy Chief of Staff, has seen the inside and outside of state government. Right now, though, has been doing incredible work with the College Bound Foundation, really finding access for young people to be able to maximize their own potential in higher education. She is the perfect nominee to take on MHEC, an agency that has needed some new guidance and some new vision. And if there is anyone that knows the challenges that young people have faced trying to get to and through higher education, it is Ms. Catherine Motz. And so without further ado, I would pass along my strong endorsement for a great public servant and someone who will be a great member of the MHEC board, Cassie Motz.
Thank you, President Ferguson, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Senator McCray from Baltimore City. As President Ferguson said, I am a Baltimore City native and a proud city resident, and for the past 9 years have spent my days working on behalf of Baltimore City students in their efforts to get to and through college. I believe that the Maryland Higher Education Commission is among the most important state agencies that we have. Education is a means to continuing self-improvement. I feel like MHEC for too long has not had adequate resources and attention from the state. And I do believe that there's a new day coming for MHEC because of Governor Moore, and because Governor Moore truly believes that no one should be left behind. And I very much want to thank the governor and his appointment secretary, Ms. Tisha Edwards, for the appointment and for their confidence in me. And I pledge to you all, the Executive Nominations Committee, to work with MHEC on behalf of every student in Baltimore City and across the state, including my 8-year-old Matthew, who's watching at home. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Motz. Do I have any other questions, any comments? Senator McCray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And then I think I will be remiss just if I didn't second everything that Senate President Ferguson said. It's no, she's definitely in the cheerleaders that care so much about our young scholars each and every day that she wake up, and just proud that she will be serving in this capacity for all of our young scholars across the state of Maryland. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Senator McCray.
Thank you very much. Oh. Senator Hayes.
No, Madam Chair, I'm gonna be very brief. I think Senator Ferguson won the rock, paper, scissors contest. I guess our third since Senator McCray. Ms. Motz has done an extraordinary job with our young people, and thank you for stepping up to the opportunity, sir.
Thank you, Senator Hayes.
Senator Hayes. So Senator Watson, would you like to introduce Janelle Bell for the State Labor Relations Board?
Good afternoon, Chair Bidle, Vice Chair, and Senate President and colleagues. Senator Ron Watson, 23rd Legislative District, serving Bowie and Upper Marlboro for the record. Here to lend my support for Ms. Janelle Bell Burnett for the State Labor Relations Board. Ms. Bell Burnett holds a JD from the University of Baltimore School of Law, BA in English from the Morgan State University. She's a member of the Maryland State Bar Association's Labor and Employment Law Section, Maryland Association for Justice, and a panel attorney with Civil Justice Incorporated, National Bar Association of the Greater Washington Area Chapter of the Women's Lawyers, and the Women's Bar Association of the District of Columbia, to name just a few. Ms. Bell Burnett is currently an advising attorney for the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, advising the Secretary on all aspects of federal labor and employment litigation risks facing the agency. She also assists the Office of General Counsel and agency leadership with strategies concerning litigation posture and improving outcomes. In addition to those things that I've just said, She has extensive background in labor relations and collective bargaining as an advising attorney, EEO specialist of Social Security Administration, as well as the Transportation Security Administration, and owns her own law firm, law offices of Janelle Bell LLC. I'm proud to present Ms. Janelle Bell Burnett.
Thank you, Senator Watson, for the kind introduction. Thank you to the members of the committee. My name is Janelle Bell Burnett. I am a resident of Prince George's County and have been for over 20 years. As the senator stated, I am currently working for the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs as a labor attorney, and I have been working for the federal government and state District of Columbia government as well for the past 6 years, handling labor relations. And during that time, I have worked with various unions to negotiate collective bargaining agreements. I've also worked to represent the government in labor arbitrations, negotiability appeals, unit clarification petitions, as well as unfair labor practice hearings. I would like to thank the governor for the nomination, as well as the opportunity to serve on this committee. I'd like to thank the appointment secretary as well for her confidence in nominating me for this committee. And it would be an honor to serve the state of Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have any comments or questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to introduce Mr. Michael Webb for the Port Commission. Mr. Webb, are you here? Thank you. I have a letter from your senator, Senator Simon Ayer, who unfortunately could not be here tonight. He says, I support the nomination of my constituent, Mr. Michael Webb, as a member of the Maryland Port Commission. With many years of experience, I believe Mr. Webb would be a great asset to the Maryland Port Commission and is deserving of this appointment. So thank you, Mr.
Public speaking is not my forte, okay? My name's, well, I go by Scott Webb. I've been a resident of Anne Arundel County my whole life. I've worked on the waterfront my whole life. I'm third generation, so I've seen it all. And it's just unbelievable to see Baltimore progressing, advancing the way they're going. When I started, we unloaded bananas by hand, 40-pound boxes. Now, containers and row. Now I see $700,000 Lamborghinis driving off of ship. I'm like, so I recognize the fact that the port is such a generator of the economy. It's just unbelievable. I don't think people realize, but I never thought I'd be the day I'd be standing here for an appointment. And I'm sure my grandfather and my father are up there going, what are they doing? But that's about it. It's been a great ride for me. There's nothing, it's hard work. It's a great ride. And I hope I can contribute something to this committee with my experience.
I think your experience will be a great contributor. Do I have any other questions for Scott? No. Thank you very much.
Glad I wasn't on the election board.
It's a character. All right. President Ferguson, you're going to introduce Justin Williams for the Stadium Authority, please.
Justin Williams, who is the vice chair of the elections board. Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. Very, very pleased to have my friend and someone who I have a great deal of confidence in, a gentleman who is an attorney who has worked in the city of Baltimore on a number of different issues, left his cushy private sector job to go in to do economic development for the city of Baltimore, and has been really knocking it out of the park as the deputy mayor for community and economic development, and has been named as the mayor's appointee to the Stadium Authority. He is eminently qualified, has a great insight and view on this work, and certainly will make a great appointee to the Stadium Authority. Without further ado.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee, I want to thank you for the time here. I thank my wife for coming down from Baltimore as well, for being here. I just turned 40 years old, so that means in 1983, when the Orioles won the last World Series, my father brought me as an infant to Baltimore to watch the parade, and he said to himself, "This could be the last time my son could see a World Series for the Orioles," and that's unfortunately came to be the case. So I'm looking forward to being a part of the Stadium Authority to help retain the Orioles here and make sure that future children can be taken to a parade and to see the World Series. The Jeffrey Mayer game was one of the worst days of my life, but the future World Series will be one of the best days of my life after my wedding day. And but more seriously, as Baltimore's poised to undertake its second renaissance, with all the exciting developments going on downtown, I'm excited to play a role in the Stadium Authority to help leverage all the development going on in the Raven Stadium and M&T Bank and Camden Yards. It's really exciting to leverage that with Harbor Place, everything going around. Looking forward to doing the same thing at Pimlico and Park Heights and the Hagerstown projects and the Blue Line projects around Prince George's County. One of the areas that I focus on in my job as deputy mayor is focusing on improving our income mobility in the city. If you remember in 2015, there was a Harvard study that showed Baltimore City was ranked dead last in economic mobility for cheap children in the lower income statuses. Recent studies have shown that the way to improve the income mobility is to create economic connectedness. Basically having upper class friends is the variable that's most important to helping improve your own lot in life. And sports is one of those key areas you can do that in. Between friendships you make on the field and the parents on the sideline talking to each other, it's one of those last areas of American life where that can happen. Also in being a fan, Ravens fans and Orioles fans and Commanders fans, it's one of those few areas left where we can come across and become friends and root for the same interest. It's also one of the areas where the built environment really matters because that can change how people connect with each other. And so I look forward to using my role in the Stadium Authority to furthering that, and I'm happy to answer any questions you'll have.
Do we have any questions? Senator Croson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for sharing your experience. And this really is a simple yes or no. Are there any past financial dealings or challenges that this committee should be made aware of?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, thank you for taking this position on the Stadium Authority. I think you're going to bring a great deal of help and assistance. So thank you. Look forward to working with you.
Thank
you. I need to back up for just a minute because I thought that Senator Lamb was going to get to join us, but they're working really hard in finance. So Mr. Robert Worthington, are you here?
Yes.
I'm sorry that you've waited this long. Would you like to come to the microphone? I'm going to just introduce you real briefly. I haven't had a chance to prepare anything and Senator Lamb thought he'd be here. So let me just introduce you to the as a member of the Airport Zoning Appeals Board. You have a lot of aeronautical background as well as a Doctor of Business Administration. So I think you'll bring a great deal of assistance to both the MAA, to the airport zoning and to your work in the state. So thank you for being here. I'm sorry Senator Lamb couldn't be here.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, distinguished members. As you can note, probably from my resume, I have a vast array of experience in aviation, from an air traffic controller to an airport manager, to currently an aviation, airspace, and airports data analyst. 20 plus years of experience. Very excited for the nomination and opportunity to be considered for the nomination to be a member of the Airport Appeals Board. I look forward to being a member and working with the other members. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Worthington? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Look forward to your service.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So if you've been heard tonight, you're welcome to leave. No one needs to stay for the rest of the evening. Why did I miss that one? Let's see.
Angela Scott.
I'm sorry, Angela Scott, are you here? I don't have anything going here at all. You have a resume? We need just a minute here. We're not, I know Senator Lamb expected to be here tonight, so thank you. Number 13.
Civil Rights Commission.
I don't have it. Okay. So, Ms. Scott, you're being nominated for the Civil Rights Commission.
Yes.
Your background shows great education from Georgetown University, as well as University of Oxford, Catholic University, and University of Maryland, Baltimore County. So you have certainly a great deal of background here, and you can maybe tell us what you're currently doing and why you want to be on the Civil Rights Commission.
Sure. I have been first of all, my name is Angela Scott. I'm very happy to be here. Please send Senator Lamb my regards. I also want to recognize my family who's here with me today. My father, Wayman Scott, my brother, Wayman Scott IV, my other brother, Alex Scott, my two line sisters, Tiffany and Pierre. Thank you for being here to support me today. My name is Angela Scott, and I have been in civil rights pretty much my entire life. My mother was an African-American history teacher, curriculum writer, and everything. And so before I knew what I wanted to do with my life, I was in the trenches. I worked for the federal government as an attorney advisor for over 18 years in federal civil rights law. I'm very, very well-versed in civil rights. I have also, in my spare time, served in civic organizations and other public interest groups, including the American Bar Association, the Section on Civil Rights and Social Justice. I recently served as chair of that over 10,000 member section. And so I'm very, very honored to be here. I'm currently an assistant vice president at a Maryland higher education institution where I oversee civil rights compliance in Title IX. So this is my field, it is in my blood, and I just cannot wait to serve Maryland in this capacity. And let me just say how proud I am to be a resident of a state who cares about accessibility within the civil rights community, including voting rights and access to the polls and access to mail-in ballots and all of that. Before my mother passed away, she had ALS for 18 years and she never missed an election, and she was able to vote because we have mail-in ballots in this state. And so I just want to make sure that I express my appreciation for our state's commitment to civil rights and accessibility for all. So
Thank you very much for your work.
Thank you.
It's really important. Do I have any questions at all for Ms. Scott? Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I just want to make sure that I express my gratitude to Governor Moore and the appointment secretary for your confidence in me. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last nominee for tonight is Mr. Colonel Roland Butler for the State Police of Maryland. And Senator Watson? I'm sorry, just give me 1 second. I think I missed one. I'm sorry, there's been a lot tonight. I think I have. Yeah, no, I have a letter. I have a letter. Okay, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Martin Lewis, are you here? We'd like to come up, please. And again, your Senator Simon Eyre could not be here tonight. So I have a letter from Senator Simon Eyre supporting your nomination as a member of the Uninsured Employers Fund Board. He says, with your many years of experience, I believe Mr. Lewis would be a great asset to the board and deserving of this appointment.
Thank you, Senator. Just want to say thank you for having me, the appointment secretary for reappointing me, and to the governor. It's a true honor. I took this role on about 7.5 years ago, and the UEF takes care of our injured workers when our employers don't have a workers' compensation policy to cover their injuries. When I took it over, it was lacking a director who had passed away, and a lot of the state pins were not filled, and it was really not running very well. So I really had to understand what that division did. And once I could understand exactly what they did, we came up with a lot of solutions and put new contracts out for bid. And it's really started to really work smoothly the last 4 or 5 years. So I'm very proud of my work, and I'm very proud of being renominated, and I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. Thank you for your work. It's an important board for sure. So thank you. Any questions at all for Mr. Lewis? Almost forgot you, so my apologies. A lot of bouncing around.
Oh, I wanted to say that I asked my daughter to come tonight so she could see how state government works. And I told her you guys were the big bosses. No offense to the delegates, but so she wanted to see it. And I've been on the board too, but just not the election board. Just want to say that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Good.
Please introduce Mr. Colonel Roland Butler for the Secretary of the Maryland State Police.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon again, colleagues. For the record, Senator Ron Watson, 23rd Legislative District, here to introduce the nominee for Secretary of the Maryland State Police, Lieutenant Colonel Roland L. Butler, Jr. Lieutenant Colonel Butler was appointed Chief of the Field Operations Bureau in July 1st, 2020, leading a patrol force of over 1,000 troopers and investigative personnel assigned to 23 barracks in the state of Maryland. Currently in his 28th year of service within the Maryland State Police, Lieutenant Colonel Butler Jr. is the 6th African-American Lieutenant Colonel in the 102-year history of the department. Lieutenant Colonel Butler earned a master's degree in organizational leadership from Johns Hopkins University Public Safety Leadership Program. He's also a graduate of Northwestern University School of Police Staff and Command. During his career, Lieutenant Colonel Butler has served in line and supervisory positions in both the patrol and investigation bureaus as he was promoted through the ranks. Butler also served on the superintendent's staff in the Office of Equity and Inclusion within the Maryland State Police Support Services Bureau and other positions throughout the Field Operations Bureau. Born and raised in Washington, D.C., he was a member of the 105th Maryland State Police Academy class, and upon graduation was assigned to the Leonardtown Barrack in St. Mary's County. I'm proud to introduce nominee for Secretary of Maryland State Police, Lieutenant Colonel Roland L. Butler, Jr.
Thank you, Senator Watson. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to thank Madam Chair Beidel, Vice Chair Hayes, Senate President Ferguson for your consideration of my nomination. I'd like to especially thank our Governor, Wes Moore, who strongly supported my nomination to become the next superintendent of the Maryland Department of State Police. I'd like to thank everyone for their time and the opportunity today to answer questions regarding my vision to move the Maryland Department of State Police forward. I've served the Maryland Department of State Police for three decades, and it's truly been an honor. As Chief of the Field Operations Bureau, I led a patrol force of over 1,000 troopers and investigative personnel assigned to 23 barracks across the state. I've served in line and supervisory positions in both patrol and investigative functions, where I rose to become the 6th African-American Bureau Chief in the 102 history of the Maryland Department of State Police. I've also served on the superintendent staff in the Office of Fair Practices, now known as Office of Equity and Inclusion, where I helped address EEOC matters, discrimination, harassment, and helped develop the troopers' early warning system for the use of force, and also oversaw the chaplains program. I've learned from my experience that teaching presents an opportunity for everyone to lead. I believe in hard work, and I believe in encouraging others to work hard. We all have an obligation to help our fellow troopers reach their full potential. My service has always been guided by my core values: courage, fortitude, resilience, understanding, and most importantly, compassion. For 102 years, the Maryland Department of State Police has worked to protect the citizens of Maryland and those visiting our beautiful state. Our troopers have one of the toughest jobs in the world. The vast majority serve with dignity and integrity and work tirelessly to uphold the law and keep our citizens safe. But throughout its history, the department has also grappled with a range of deeply troubling issues: bias, discrimination, inappropriate behavior, and an inequitable system of career advancement that has had many qualified troopers back in their careers. As we discussed during previous meetings, and as I stand before you today, let me be very clear. I am absolutely committed to moving the Maryland Department of State Police forward. I'm committed to deploying my core values to steer the department in a new direction into a new era. It is my top priority. I've heard your concerns and the concerns of your constituents, and I'm absolutely committed to addressing these issues head on. To begin, we must acknowledge and address all bias and discriminatory practices. We have a duty to build trust, boost morale, and above all else, protect the citizens we're sworn to protect. Together, we will build a leadership team that will focus on these pillars, keeping diversity and inclusion at the top of our mind. We'll reorganize the department and ensure that there are more opportunities for advancement across the department. We need to build a diverse pipeline in the leadership across the department. We'll also modernize our assessment to ensure our promotional processes are merit-driven and fair. We must recognize and reward excellence across the department. We will invest in outreach and recruitment, especially to historically underrepresented communities, so that we can build a department that looks like Maryland and reflects our values. These changes and other changes are necessary and will require leadership to manage such change. In partnership with the community, I will enlist the entire department in this effort to drive equity and representation across the state. I plan to continue to meet with all troopers, including the Coalition of Black Maryland State Troopers, the Maryland Troopers Association, to hear their concerns and work in partnership to move forward identifying solutions. I stand by my record and the job I've done for 28 and a half years. I know that I am up to the task of serving as superintendent. We have a responsibility and an opportunity, and we must get this right. That begins with building a department that reflects the values of our great state. It's diverse, well-trained, thoroughly prepared, and is ready for any challenge that may present itself. I want to thank every single member of this committee who's taken the time to meet with me one-on-one to learn about my vision for the department and hear my story. I also want to thank my fellow colleagues who have come forward today in support of my nomination. Would you all please rise and be recognized by the committee? Thank you. Again, I'd like to thank you for your time and allowing me to highlight my vision to create a stronger and more inclusive Maryland Department of State Police. I ask for your favorable consideration to become the next superintendent of the Maryland Department of State Police, and I'm happy to provide questions to any answers to any questions you may have. Dry mouth, I'm sorry.
Colonel, you're finished your presentation?
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Thank you. No, I just want to make sure you weren't just stopping for a drink in between.
No,
Do I have any questions at all for Colonel Butler? President Ferguson?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Colonel Butler, for being here tonight. Thank you for your service as well. Look, I will say very obviously that I received the packet provided by the appointments office of the number of letters, and sometimes we'll receive kind of form letters ahead of appointments that are, individuals who have said that they're supportive and they send the pre-written email. This stack of letters is pretty impressive, and it is it made me take note. It is all individually written letters by kind of leaders from across different parts of the state. And so I do want to say I appreciate you taking the time to build that coalition. I think that we've all known that you've had a lot of hard conversations with a lot of members, something that you and I have spoken about. And I think one of the things that is most important that I hope that you can take a moment to address is, where there have been struggles in the department, where recent news accounts and concerns with the U.S. Department of Justice, members have said, you've been in the leadership. How can you take on the new leadership role? How will you be able to change when some of the challenges have existed while you've been in that position? Can you take a moment to please address those thoughts?
Thank you, Mr. President, for your question. It's a very good question. Being in leadership is a very important thing, but you don't know everything that's going on around you. The biggest thing we need to do is start with building trust and communication. People need to feel comfortable bringing their concerns to me or anyone else within the rank structure. That trust can only be built over time with direct communication, honest communication, and I'm willing to go to those people on their terms at their installations or wherever to talk and find out what's going on. I can remember what it was like being a brand new trooper, not understanding whether the people at the top, so to speak, understood your plight compared to what they were doing. I am very sensitive to that, and I will certainly work hard to improve those communications and rebuild that trust.
Senator Augustine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I said when we met, I thank you for your service.
Yes, Senator.
There clearly, as was mentioned by the Senate President, there's a tremendous amount of very strong support that's been submitted in here. But unlike what we've seen with pretty much all the other nominees, I'm not sure if our colleagues are aware, there is a packet of some 30 pages of folks with concerns that they've shared here with us about some of the things and the responses that they've had. How do you, and as I share with you, we've had those conversations. How do you reconcile the strong support letters versus these group of letters that are not in that same posture?
What I'll say, Senator, is I appreciate the rich communication on both sides from my supporters and my dissenters. Everyone has something to offer in this conversation. Just like we talk about national law enforcement reform, I will have to reform to lead the Maryland State Police. And I look forward to working with everyone who has a stake in this, be it the Troopers Association, the Coalition of Troopers, lawmakers, community members. We all have a role to play in this. Communication is critical, and communication must be based on trust. People have to have faith when they bring a concern forward that concern will be addressed. It'll be addressed in an unbiased manner. It'll be met head on, and more importantly, they will have a stake in that communication.
Madam Chair, if I can, okay. Thank you for that answer. Colonel Butler, I've also had conversations with some of my colleagues who have over the years interacted with you over the time, over the last 10 years or so, in situations that perhaps were a little bit tense, and have expressed some concerns about that, how those interactions occurred, or that there wasn't necessarily very clear communication. There wasn't really any engagement across that period of time. Are you aware of that, or do you know what I'm talking about?
In talking with each of you, as well as members of the employee groups, yes, I'm aware of that. I am prepared to address that and bridge that divide by sitting down and meeting with them to talk out the differences.
Okay, and so after, this is the process that we have, and if you are confirmed, what from the past, beyond kind of this very short period that we've had right now, what from the past can you point to that would provide comfort that those interactions that had occurred over the course of a decade won't happen going forward?
I'll give you my word as a Maryland State Trooper. I've worked hard for 28.5 years. Those people that brought concerns to my attention can tell you flat out their concerns were addressed, win, lose, or draw. Whether it was good news or bad news, not only did I address their concern, I took the message back to them to let them know what was done. I think that the greatest failure there is that I didn't get to meet and contact enough people. I didn't create that rapport where they were comfortable coming to me. The greatest resource that any law enforcement body has is that human resource.
Okay, so why not? Why weren't they comfortable coming to you?
Don't know. But I can tell you, I'll sit down and talk with them. I'll make my trek across the state to meet with people. I'd like to know. I don't want this to happen to anyone else. And I certainly don't want it to happen to anyone under my charge. From the rank of trooper up to lieutenant colonel, I want them to be accessible, and I want them to understand how important the concerns those under their charge are.
Okay, one last question, because you mentioned the fact that you were a part of the Fair Practice in EEOC program. And right now, it's my understanding that there is there's a federal review that is going on. There's a probe into hiring practices at the agency. And in addition to there's another lawsuit as well alleging discrimination and some other things like that. As a part of that, how do you see, well, first of all, I'm not sure if you're subject to it or whatnot, but how do you see as a being inside of that to be able to look to reform what has been going on or what seems to be at issue inside of the Maryland State Police?
Thank you, Senator. Obviously, I can't speak on the pending litigation, the lawsuit,
Right.
but I can speak on the DOJ inquiry.
Okay.
I think it's important that we hear back exactly what the DOJ has to say. And after we hear what they have to say, we have to get out and meet with everybody at every level. We have to understand the concerns of the employees. We have to understand what was brought forth by the DOJ. In doing so, we can all sit down, build a transition team that's capable of righting those wrongs and building a better agency. Yes, I was a part of that structure, but again, as a bureau chief, you don't get to see everything. I wish I would have seen more, but you just don't get to see everything. We're talking 1,000 troopers and 23 installations.
Thank you.
Chair Griffith. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Colonel Butler. Just first of all, thank you for your meetings and for what I consider to be very candid conversation. I started hearing about challenges back in the House of Delegates, as I shared with you, and through our series of meetings, you've acknowledged that there have been some challenges, and even tonight kind of shared your approach to establishing trust and communication moving forward. Can you tell me a little bit about what your structure, should this appointment go through, what you see as sort of structural changes in the department that you might implement that can help mitigate the likelihood of the challenges of the past being repeated in the future?
Yes, Senator, thank you for your question. As far as challenges, I was a victim of discrimination. I faced a lot of challenges over the course of time. I think the best way to address these challenges is to put together a team, a diverse team across ranks, genders, different professions within the department, and sit down and see where we really need to go. Look at all the feedback, talk to everyone. These challenges, they're great, but they're going to start with communication and honesty. You have to honestly be able to communicate with the person, and that person has to do the same with you. If we get those pathways of communication open, we can address anything. I'm not saying it'll be easy. It'll be challenging. People have to realize that their feelings don't play a role in this. This is about public safety. This is about the occupational health of our employees. Again, our most valuable commodity. We invest so much in these people. They have lives beyond MSP. We need to safeguard that just like we safeguard the citizens of this state.
Okay, thank you. And I guess my follow-up question, Madam Chair, if I could, is you talked about the 23 different barracks, I guess. I don't know. I'm not in the field, so I don't know the terminology, and the 1,000 employees. And I guess I'm interested in hearing, it sounds like when you were in your position in the past, there wasn't always a flow of communication. The things that you needed to know to be effective did not necessarily come to your ear or your attention. And when they did, it sounds like you didn't have an opportunity or the tools you needed, the resources you needed to intervene. How will your administration be different? Like, who will you surround yourself with, and what resources will you put in place to make sure that the position you found yourself in, the person that follows you in that position doesn't?
Thank you, ma'am. To an extent, I'll surround myself with like-minded people. I am not a fan of groupthink, everybody having the same opinion. I need independent thinkers that can carry out their duties as they're delegated to them. That is one of the problems within the system. No bureau chief can be expected to see every communication that goes to a trooper. However, that bureau chief ultimately is responsible for every communication. Sergeant, corporal, lieutenant. We need to build a system where concerns are brought forth immediately. They don't go through layers. I would like those concerns to come to one person and go directly to me at that point so that I can put the resources in place and address that. Also, the Office of Equity and Inclusion, I would like to expand that role to give more coverage, greater resources for troopers that have problems, and also beyond sending a letter back to someone to say that there nothing found or there was something found, I'd like them to be able to have FaceTime with a person that can talk about exactly what happened to help them understand that their concerns were not made in vain. We looked at it. We need to understand what's going on. And though we may not have a sustained charge, it may put us on the track of re-education, a better understanding of people culturally, and just a better understanding of where people come from.
Thank you very much for your responses. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Hershey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lieutenant Colonel Butler, thank you so much for meeting with me and having a very open dialogue about a number of the issues that were brought up today. And I certainly can respect the opinion of my colleagues, but I'll also say that we all have very different priorities when it comes to how we choose to vote on this. And those of us that represent rural counties rely very heavily on our sheriff's departments. And I do want to just read something into the record that comes from the Maryland Sheriff's Association that states that they would highly recommend Lieutenant Colonel Butler as a superb selection for superintendent of the Maryland State Police. That's very meaningful to at least me that has 4 different counties. And I did get an opportunity to talk to a few sheriffs that spoke very highly of you. But I do want to ask one question as it relates maybe more towards the rural areas, because there is such a partnership between local police, law enforcement, and the state police. So just maybe briefly tell us how you plan to continue that collaboration and those partnerships with local law enforcement officers as far as what will be going on in those counties.
Again, the partnerships are critical in law enforcement, be it a rural county, metropolitan area. The state police needs local police. We need the county police and they need us. We have certain expertise that they may not have. We currently have 21 task force, either drugs or criminal, across the state, in addition to working hand in hand on patrol activity. We need each other to address this problem. We need each other to provide better training and better understanding as to what we're encountering out there. And there has to be information sharing. Fusion centers or things that are sent to, the Western Maryland Fusion Center, Eastern Shore Fusion Center are critical. Each has to know what the other is doing.
Well, I appreciate that. And I know we've had some successes with our drug enforcement task force many times on the Eastern Shore. And again, we look forward to working with you as well, too.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next, Senator Croza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to thank you, Colonel, for the time we spent and we covered a variety of issues. I want to follow up on 2 issues. One that my colleague and friend from District 36 just touched on, but taking it a step further. The partnerships that you have at the county and the local level not only are so important on operations, but there's a piece of it that these sheriffs and police chiefs need to know that you have the ear of the governor, so that if they're saying to you, look at what's happening here in these counties, that you can have those candid conversations with the governor. And I have no doubt after meeting with you, you are completely committed to the Maryland State Police and these partnerships. But I guess I want to hear that you're willing to take that a step further, because sometimes those sheriffs and police chiefs are they're making recommendations that the governor needs to hear and that they're counting on you to reinforce. So I'd like to know that will occur. And my second question is, Sergeant Phillips was shot by a repeat violent offender. You just mentioned earlier that he's my constituent. And you just mentioned earlier about that you're going to have these communications across the ranks and pull them in. Well, he has something to say. And I would hope that you would follow up with him on exactly, when he talks about the fact that he was shot by a repeat violent offender. So I'm just asking that, you are in an incredible position of power for this state, and you can do so much good. but they need to know at the local level, whether it's the police chiefs, the county sheriffs, or the rank and file, that you've got the ear of the governor and you'll have those tough conversations with the governor.
When it comes to public safety, there is no such thing as a conversation that's too tough to have. As the superintendent of the state police, when concerns are brought to me that need to go to the governor, I will make those concerns known to the governor without hesitation. When we get down to Sergeant Phillips, I thank you for reaching out to him. He and I talk on a regular basis or text on a regular basis. I think the only times we haven't are the 2 Mondays that preceded his event. I didn't want to call him or talk to him on those days. The first thing he said, he was thankful he rose to the occasion and he made it home. He was happy to be with his family. I stressed to him the most important thing was becoming whole again. He set an outstanding example to the troopers of the Maryland State Police, 1, being prepared, 2, doing your job. He's on his way home after working a long shift and a car passes him at 100 miles an hour. He had the option to ignore that. He didn't. He stopped the car and almost lost his life. Thank God he didn't. But I am so proud of the way he performed and how he composed himself. He's a fine example to everyone in the law enforcement community. We need more Sergeant Phillips out there. Yes, ma'am.
Senator Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I wanted to follow up along the lines of Senator Griffith's line of questioning. And I'll just get more narrow with it. Specifically, what do you perceive to be the most significant challenges facing the department with respect to diversity, inclusion, retention, and recruitment? And what are your specific suggestions on day one to address those concerns? That's one question. And then the second one is your long history in the department could have been perceived as having some level of responsibility for the direction of the department. But it can also be an asset because of your experience in terms of how you plan to change it. Just could you speak to that as well?
The greatest danger to the department is that people are no longer going into this as a profession. We look at it when I came on, I remember in 1994 saying I would probably be here for 25 years. We've reached a point where we're begging for people just to come for 3 to 5 years. And hopefully in that 3 to 5 years, they see the impact of helping another. They see an impact of improving the quality of life for an individual. So I think recruiting is our greatest challenge. The next greatest challenge, discrimination and unfair treatment. We ask people to do a very, very, very difficult job. Everybody deserves to come to work, wanting to come to work, wanting to be there, not worried about being treated inappropriately, not worried about so-called microaggressions that after the first or second one, they're major aggressions at that point. Everyone should be made whole, treated like a person, like a human being, talked to, not talked at. That's something that I will foster with communication with those under my charge and encourage them and force them to push it down. They're difficult conversations to be had, but at the conclusion of every difficult conversation, you have the ability to thank the person for what they've done, what they brought to your attention, and have them walk out of your office whole or walk away from that exchange whole, thinking, wow, I am valued as an employee. It doesn't matter what just happened. We had a very difficult conversation, but I'm whole as a person. They truly care about me.
Are you finished?
I know we're late, so I'll be very brief then. Just specifically then, just because it's an important touch point. So specifically, do you feel any element of responsibility for the ailments of the department? And because of your long association and history and career, how does that make you unique in your ability to be a change agent in the future?
Having grown up in the department from 1994 and worked all over the state, I've seen a lot of things, good and bad. Everything that we see in the media, as a bureau chief, I'm responsible for. Win, lose, or draw, whether I knew or not, those are people under my charge. If I want to help celebrate their successes, I have to deal with the shortcomings. They fall back on me to build the best team and the best mousetrap effectively that I can to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And that means communicating my goals and objectives, and then maybe circling all the way down to the first line supervisor level to make sure that my goals and objectives were delivered as I intended, not changed along the way to suit someone else's version of expediency or something like that. We have to be clear. Internally, I understand the Maryland State Police. I've dedicated 28 and a half years of my life to the Maryland State Police. I know I can make it better. I'm willing to work with anyone to make it better.
Senator Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Colonel, for meeting with us. Greatly appreciate it. The Senate President alluded to the quality of some of the letters that's been written in support of you. And others of my colleagues have acknowledged some of the letters against you. And I would encourage all of my colleagues, if you have not had an opportunity to read this packet, there's, some very substantive stuff in there, but some of it is, I don't see where it really lands, or it's almost laughable in some cases. This person writes, it's come to my attention that Governor Westmore has nominated Roland Butler to lead Maryland State Police. I don't know Mr. Butler at all, but I have many African-American troopers that I know him as friends. I don't even think this person live in the state, but they recommended that we disapprove the nomination. Others have written letters about like stuff that sound to me like inside baseball about dispatchers not being at troopers or whatever. But one of the questions, there's one question that's really to the point. And I'd like to give you an opportunity to at least answer this because it's probably one of the shortest ones on here. It's very specific. It says, while at the Forestville barrack, did a group of troopers write a letter and sign requesting your removal for Forestville barrack, wherever that is? I think.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's 3500 Forestville Road, Southern Prince George's County.
Right.
For the record, I am the longest serving barrack commander at Forestville. There were numerous opportunities for me to walk away from that installation. It was an installation with a number of disciplinary concerns. Originally, there were 9 people listed on that letter. I got the letter and I immediately forwarded it to the Office of Fair Practices and also Internal Affairs, asking that they look into it to put the issues to rest. Many of their issues had to do with the quality of the environment that they were in. There had just been a renovation on that barrack. However, the renovation fell drastically short of what was needed. I believe in discipline. I believe in correcting behavior and leaving people whole. I walked into an environment where there was a lack of discipline, a lack of leadership. There was a lack of direction. There were a lot of tough decisions that I had to make, and I met those decisions and I met the issue head on. I talked to people. I made sure they understood why we were taking the disciplinary action that we took. In many cases, there were things that could be corrected without disciplinary action, just a simple conversation for them to understand their obligation to the patch that they had on their shoulder. It's never easy to have to discipline people that you look at every day. But there's a way to do it, to be direct, honest, and to the point. Leave them whole, leave them with their pride, and let them know that you still believe in them. Forestville was truly a challenge, truly a challenge. It's the barrack with one of the highest turnover rates in the state. There were times when I would turn over 13 troopers at one time, 13. You're getting a lot of new people out of the academy that don't know anything about Southern Prince George's County. But one of the best parts about that, sitting down, reading their packets, pairing them up with the appropriate field trainer, and telling them, when you cut them loose, it's okay to be scared. But I'll tell you now, you come here and work hard, you will have the opportunity to excel wherever you want to be in this state. Whether you want to move to a barrack on the shore, Western Maryland, or a specialized division, this will give you the underpinnings for success. The only thing you need to do is work hard, ask questions, and hold yourself accountable.
Right. I think and this is my final question, Madam Chair, but and this one's personally because it just struck home just today, right? I think serving in leadership positions, oftentimes you may be characterized in a way, and what I've heard, the biggest criticism is because you've been in leadership, you may be complacent with some of the things. I know even serving in leadership in this body, oftentimes there may be things that you disagree with or take issue with, but you make certain positions. I guess, how would you respond to the notion that because you are in leadership, you're complacent with some of the ideas or things that weren't favorable towards Black officers. How do you receive that? How would you respond to that as a complaint? Thank you, Madam President.
Senator, I would disagree with that assessment. I was a bureau chief. I was not the superintendent. I did have the ability to bring my concerns forth to anything that went wrong. The president of the coalition, also the president of the Troopers Association, had my phone number and could bring anything to my attention. With one of those groups, I addressed 92 instances of what he thought was inappropriate behavior. Many of those were. But oftentimes you can only make suggestion to the person in power. And I stood hard on my suggestions. I can think of one that occurred not far from here at Navy Marine Corps Stadium after the death of George Floyd. I politely demanded that we put a message out to let everybody know in the department, we denounced that. It was absolutely reprehensible. I sent my boss at the time 3 pages that I had written, just sitting there searching my soul, looking at what had happened and how the young troopers and even the seasoned troopers must view that. He took my suggestions and he put out that communication. That to me is truth to power. You can always give your side. You can't force people to take it, but you can stand your ground and make a healthy case. What needs to be done, why it needs to be done, and most importantly, what happens if it's not done.
Senator Feldman.
Lieutenant Colonel, just real quick, because just following up on Senator Hayes's question about this letter, your answer was that it was originally there were 9 folks on the letter.
Mm-hmm.
So give me sort of then the follow-up. You said you referred this letter for further investigation to internal. One more time, did any of those 9 folks subsequently pull back? Or because you said the word originally, so that kind of suggests that there was some follow-up and some findings and that type of thing. So I didn't get the full sort of follow-up story of the findings of investigation, or that did 3 of the 9 back off or something to that effect.
My apologies. 2 of the 9, one of which was the one that brought the letter to my attention, said they wanted no part of it. Their name was added. So of the 7, 5 had received disciplinary action for inappropriate conduct. The ringleader in the whole thing was found to be leaving work early, effectively stealing time. The investigation or the inquiry was done by the Office of Fair Practices, not only on me, but from my boss at the time, the captain. There was no wrongdoing uncovered. None. They simply found that we were addressing issues that were left to linger out there for quite some time. And it reached a point where people basically had a free-for-all. And I think each and every one of us in this room could imagine stepping into that, having to draw a line in the sand, maintain communication, while you still have people going out there risking their lives every day. You have to be supportive. You have to be firm, but you also have to address those issues head on.
Well, if there are no other questions, I have a couple of questions, Colonel. So
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you. Thank you for being here tonight. In your list of 5 things that you want to change going forward, you talk about increased investment in recruitment and retention. How many troopers do we have now in the Maryland State Police?
We're right at about 1,400 or so.
And how many of those are minority troopers?
We have 166 at this juncture.
So that's my concern. So what's your plan as you increase investment in recruitment and retention, that you increase the minority representation so it reflects more what our society looks like in Maryland?
Yes, ma'am. As you look at that, when we talk about recruitment and retention, state police already has a robust recruiting plan. The problem, we're competing with other departments for a very small pool of applicants. We're doing something different that we never did before. Now, when we get a person through the pipeline, we're following them all the way to the end. We aren't asking them to wait until we start a class 4 months, 6 months down the road. We're bringing them in paid positions. They can work at licensing. They can work at the crime lab. Once we get their interest, we want to keep their interest. Also, we're going back and looking at those people. The bulk of people, roughly 45%, drop out during the processing. They don't complete their applications. I think most police departments, most businesses just ignore those people. We're calling those people back, trying to get them in where we can sit down and go knee to knee and talk to them. Hey, why did you do that? A lot of things that we're finding, the way our process is set up, it's usually someone that, they get that bug. Hey, I want to be a trooper. They don't realize how quickly the process can work when we're processing sometimes. They may not be prepared for the functional physical fitness test. We're bringing them in. We're giving them physical fitness plans to follow to bring them up to snuff where we need them to be for a truly arduous academy. We're working hard with HBCUs, and it goes beyond just going from a recruiting event. To quote a couple departments, you have to be in there and be part of the structure, which means not only just a homecoming event. If you can get a couple minutes to talk with the class about what they're thinking, criminal justice. A lot of people that major in criminal justice don't really know what they want to do with that degree. I had the opportunity at Bowie State to speak to a class. It came on the heels of stopping their professor from running a red light. She opened that door and I'm like, no, no, no. And she said, I think it would be good. The way you've treated me, I think it would be good. Okay. We need to capitalize on that. The human resource is the greatest resource. Even if we only keep that trooper for 3 to 5 years, they're liable to bring us someone else. They may move on to the federal government, but still, we've made ourselves better and we're building that reputation.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you all for your time. I truly appreciate this opportunity. And I look forward, hopefully, to your support to becoming the next superintendent of the Maryland State Police. Thank you very much.
Mr. Vice Chair, do you have a nomination? Motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, please listen very closely. All right. I move favorable on nominations 1 through 26. All our local and state nominations with these exceptions. Please listen with these exceptions. Listening is fundamental. You'll learn something by listening. All right, number 25. S31. Oh, got it. Number 25. S31. S38. L60. L127. 60. L60 though, L60. And then after L60, it was L127. And so I'm gonna repeat what I've called out so far, just so some people could catch up. Is number 25, S31, S is in Sam, 31, S is in Sam, 38, L is in Larry, 60, L is in Larry, 127. That's so far, but there's more. L53, that's L53, L is in Larry, 53. Number 16, this number 16, and number 26, 26. And just one more time, just to make sure everyone was able to catch all of them, just in case. Number 25, S31, S38, L60, 60, L127, L53, number 16, and number 26. Those are the exceptions to the favorable nomination.
Second, do I have any questions on the motion? Okay, all in favor of the motion in the second? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.